The rain hammered against the windows of Pike's Coffee House as Emma Rodriguez clutched her portfolio tighter. She had traveled over 2,000 miles from her small hometown in Texas to Seattle, carrying nothing but dreams and her last $100. The job interview at Pierce Technologies was her only shot at making it in the big city. Emma checked her phone for the third time in 5 minutes. The interview was in 30 minutes, and she needed this coffee to calm her nerves. Her worn sneakers squeaked against the wet floor as she approached the counter. The barista, a young man with kind eyes, smiled at her. "What can I get you today?" he asked. "Just a simple black coffee, please," Emma replied. Her Texas accent soft but noticeable in the Seattle crowd. As she waited, Emma noticed the bustling atmosphere around her. People in expensive suits talked loudly into their phones. Laptops glowed from every table. The air buzzed with the energy of a city that never slowed down. She felt very small in her simple blue dress and cardigan. "Emma," the barista called out. She stepped forward to collect her coffee. But at the same moment, a tall man in a perfectly tailored navy suit reached for the same cup. Their hands touched briefly, and Emma felt a strange spark shoot through her fingers. "Sorry. I think that's mine," the man said, his voice deep and warm. Emma looked up into the most striking green eyes she had ever seen. The man was handsome in a way that seemed almost unreal, with dark hair that was perfectly styled despite the rain outside. He looked like he had stepped out of a business magazine, actually. "I ordered a black coffee for Emma," she said quietly. Feeling her cheeks grow warm, the man's expression softened, and a small smile played at the corners of his mouth. "I'm so sorry. I ordered the same thing." "Jonathan," he said, extending his hand. "Emma Rodriguez," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm but gentle, and she noticed he wore an expensive watch that probably cost more than her rent. "Are you from around here?" Jonathan asked, clearly noticing her accent. "Texas, actually." "I'm here for a job interview," Emma said, then immediately wondered why she was sharing personal information with a stranger. "Really? What kind of work?" Jonathan's interest seemed genuine, not just polite conversation. "Graphic design." "It's at Pierce Technologies," Emma said, checking her phone again. 20 minutes left. Something flickered across Jonathan's face, an expression Emma couldn't quite read. "That's a good company," he said carefully. The barista appeared with another coffee. "Here's your order, sir," he said to Jonathan, then turned to Emma with an apologetic smile. "Sorry about the mix-up." As Emma reached for her wallet, Jonathan gently placed his hand on her arm. "Please, let me buy your coffee. It's the least I can do for the confusion." "You don't have to do that," Emma protested. But Jonathan was already handing money to the barista. "Consider it a good luck charm for your interview," he said with a warm smile. Emma felt her heart skip a beat. This man was not only incredibly handsome, but he seemed genuinely kind. In her small hometown, she had never met anyone quite like him. "Thank you," she said softly. "That's very kind of you." They found themselves walking toward the door together, and Jonathan held it open for her. The rain had lightened to a gentle drizzle, and the Seattle skyline looked almost magical through the mist. "Can I ask you something?" Jonathan said as they stood under the coffee shop's awning. Emma nodded, surprised by how comfortable she felt talking to this stranger. "What made you want to leave Texas for Seattle?" he asked. Emma looked out at the city stretching before them, full of possibilities and dreams. "Sometimes you have to leave everything familiar behind to find who you're really meant to be," she said. "I've always felt like I was meant for something bigger than my small town could offer." Jonathan studied her face, and Emma had the strange feeling that he understood exactly what she meant. "That takes a lot of courage," he said quietly. "Or maybe it's just foolishness." Emma replied with a nervous laugh. "No," Jonathan said firmly. "It's definitely courage." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching people hurry past with their umbrellas and briefcases. Emma felt like she was in a movie, talking to this mysterious, handsome stranger in the rain. "I should probably head to my interview," Emma said reluctantly. "Of course," Jonathan said. "Good luck, Emma, from Texas. I hope you get everything you're looking for in Seattle." As Emma walked away, she turned back once to see Jonathan still standing there, watching her go. She felt a flutter in her stomach and told herself to focus on the interview ahead. The Pierce Technologies building was even more impressive than she had imagined. Glass and steel stretched up toward the cloudy sky, and the lobby was filled with modern art and sleek furniture. Emma felt intimidated but tried to project confidence as she announced herself to the receptionist. "Emma Rodriguez for the graphic design position," she said. "Please have a seat. Mr. Pierce will see you." Shortly, the receptionist replied with a professional smile. Emma's heart stopped. Mr. Pierce. The man from the coffee shop had been Jonathan, and she had just told the CEO of the company that she was here for an interview at his own company. She felt mortified and wondered if she should leave before making an even bigger fool of herself. Before she could decide, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "Emma from Texas." She turned to see Jonathan standing there, and wearing a slight smile that seemed both amused and impressed. "You're him," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're Jonathan Pierce?" "Guilty as charged," he said. "And you, Emma Rodriguez, are either the most honest person I've ever met, or you have no idea how to research a company before an interview." Emma felt her face burn with embarrassment. "I am so sorry. I had no idea. I should have recognized you, but I was so nervous in the rain. And the coffee mix dash up. ... Don't apologize," Jonathan said gently. "In fact, it was the most refreshing conversation I've had in years. No one was trying to impress me or tell me what they thought I wanted to hear. You were just yourself." He gestured toward the elevators. "Shall we go upstairs and make this interview official?" As they rode up together, Emma realized that her life was about to change in ways she never could have imagined. The man beside her was not just any successful businessman, but one of the youngest billionaires in America. And somehow, impossibly, he seemed genuinely interested in getting to know the small-town girl from Texas who had accidentally spilled coffee. Into his world, the elevator doors opened, and Emma stepped forward into her new future, her heart racing with possibilities she had never dared to dream. The following Monday morning, Emma stood in the lobby of Pierce Technologies, wearing her best professional outfit, a black blazer. She had bought at a discount store and pressed carefully the night before. Her portfolio felt heavy in her hands as she waited for her supervisor to collect her, Emma Rodriguez. A woman with short auburn hair and a warm smile approached her. "I'm Jennifer Walsh, the creative director. Welcome to Pierce Technologies." Emma followed Jennifer through the modern offices, past glass conference rooms and open workspaces filled with people typing furiously on sleek computers. Everything looked expensive and cutting edge, so different from the small advertising agency back home where she had interned. "Your desk is right here," Jennifer said, stopping at a workstation near a large window overlooking the Seattle skyline. "You'll be working on various projects, but I have something special to start you off with." Emma settled into her new chair, trying to look confident despite feeling completely out of place. The other designers around her looked so polished and professional in their designer clothes and trendy glasses. "We have a charity initiative launching next month," Jennifer continued. "It's called Dreams for Kids. We're partnering with local schools to provide art supplies and computer access to underprivileged children. Mr. Pierce is personally overseeing this project." Emma's heart skipped at the mention of Jonathan's name. She hadn't seen him since the interview 3 days ago, when he had offered her the job on the spot. She wondered if he remembered their coffee shop conversation, or if she was just another new employee to him. "Now that sounds wonderful," Emma said, her genuine enthusiasm showing in her voice. "I'm glad you think so, because you'll be working directly with Mr. Pierce on the visual campaign," Jennifer said with a knowing smile. Before Emma could respond, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Good morning, Emma. How are you settling in?" She turned to see Jonathan approaching, looking impeccable in a charcoal gray suit. Her pulse quickened, and she hoped her nervousness didn't show on her face. "Very well. Thank you, Mr. Pierce," she replied professionally. Though she couldn't help but smile. "Please call me Jonathan," he said, his green eyes twinkling. "We're not very formal around here." "Jennifer, has Emma been briefed on the Dreams for Kids project?" "Just finishing up," Jennifer replied. "I'll let you two discuss the details." As Jennifer walked away, Jonathan pulled up a chair next to Emma's desk. She caught a hint of his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her feel slightly dizzy. "I want to hear your initial thoughts on this project," Jonathan said, leaning forward with genuine interest. "What comes to mind when you think about inspiring children to pursue their dreams?" Emma took a deep breath, reminding herself that he had hired her for her talent, not just because of their chance meeting. "I think about possibility," she said slowly. "When I was growing up in a small town, I didn't know that jobs like graphic design even existed. I think these kids need to see that there are endless possibilities out there, not just the few careers they see in their immediate surroundings." Jonathan nodded thoughtfully. "Tell me more. Maybe we could create a campaign that shows kids from similar backgrounds who have achieved amazing things." Emma continued, her confidence growing. "Not just celebrities, but real people like teachers, engineers, artists, entrepreneurs. Show them that dreams aren't just fantasies, they're blueprints for the future." "I love that," Jonathan said, and Emma could tell he meant it. "What if we took it a step further and actually brought some of these role models into the schools? Made it interactive?" Emma's eyes lit up. "We could create a whole program. Career days, mentorship opportunities, maybe even internships for the older kids." "You're thinking beyond just a marketing campaign," Jonathan observed. "You're thinking about real impact. Isn't that what matters?" Emma asked. "I mean, anyone can design a pretty poster, but if we're not actually changing lives, what's the point?" Jonathan was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Emma wondered if she had said something wrong, been too bold for her first day. "Most people who pitch to me are thinking about profit margins and brand recognition," he said finally. "You're thinking about the kids we're trying to help. That's exactly the perspective this project needs." Over the following weeks, Emma threw herself into the Dreams for Kids project with passion she had never felt for any job before. She and Jonathan worked closely together, often staying late into the evening to refine their ideas. Emma discovered that despite his wealth and success, Jonathan was surprisingly down to earth. He remembered details about her life in Texas, asked thoughtful questions about her family, and shared stories about his own childhood. She learned that he had grown up middle class, that his success had come from years of hard work and smart investments, not from family money. "I never forgot what it felt like to dream bigger than my circumstances," Jonathan told her one evening as they worked on campaign mock-ups. "My parents owned a small hardware store. They worked 16-hour days just to keep it afloat. When I told them I wanted to start a tech company, they thought I was crazy." "What changed their minds?" Emma asked, looking up from her computer screen. "Success," Jonathan said with a slight smile. "But by then, I realized that success without purpose is just an expensive way to be empty. That's why projects like this matter to me." Emma felt something shift in her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the late hour or the coffee they had been sharing. She was falling for this man, and that terrified her. Their breakthrough came during a visit to Roosevelt Elementary, a school in one of Seattle's more challenging neighborhoods. Emma and Jonathan had come to test their campaign ideas with actual students. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Emma asked a group of fourth graders. The answers were predictable at first: police officer, teacher, doctor. But then a small girl named Maria raised her hand shyly. "I want to design video games," she said quietly. "But my mom says that's not a real job." Emma's heart broke a little. She knelt down to Maria's level. "That is absolutely a real job. Do you know that some of the most successful people in the world design video games?" Jonathan watched as Emma spent the next 20 minutes talking to Maria about game design, showing her simple sketching techniques on her tablet, encouraging the little girl's questions. When Maria's face lit up with possibility, Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "You're going to change that little girl's life?" Jonathan said quietly as they walked back to his car. "We're going to change it," Emma corrected. "This whole program is going to change lots of lives." Jonathan stopped walking and turned to face her. The late afternoon sun caught the gold highlights in Emma's brown hair, and her face glowed with the passion she felt for their work. "Emma," he said softly, "I need to tell you something." She looked up at him, her heart racing at the serious tone in his voice. "This project, working with you, it's reminded me why I got into business in the first place," he said. You've reminded me that success means nothing if you're not using it to lift other people up. Emma felt her breath catch. They were standing close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. I've reminded you, she whispered. You have this way of seeing straight to the heart of things, Jonathan said. You see people, really see them. You saw Maria today not as a poor kid with impossible dreams, but as a future game designer who just needed someone to believe in her. Emma felt her cheeks flush. Anyone would have done the same thing. No, Jonathan said firmly. They wouldn't have. Most people would have given her a nice smile and moved on. You gave her hope. They stood there in the school parking lot, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. Emma knew that if she looked into his eyes for one more second, she would be completely lost. We should get back to the office, she said quietly, though every part of her wanted to stay in this moment forever. As they drove back through Seattle's busy streets, Emma stared out the window and tried to make sense of what was happening. She had come to this city looking for a career, but instead she had found something much more complicated and wonderful. She had found a man who challenged her, inspired her, and made her believe that anything was possible. But she also knew that falling for her boss, especially one as powerful and wealthy as Jonathan Pierce, was dangerous territory. Still, as she watched his profile in the driver's seat, his strong hands on the steering wheel, his brow furrowed in concentration, Emma couldn't help but wonder if, maybe, just maybe, he was feeling the same impossible thing she was feeling. The Dreams for Kids campaign was going to be a success. She could feel it. But the dream growing in her own heart was much more fragile and much more frightening. As they pulled into the Pierce Technologies parking garage, Emma took a deep breath and prepared to face whatever came next. 3 months after the Dreams for Kids program launched, Emma found herself standing in Jonathan's penthouse apartment, looking out at the Seattle skyline twinkling below them. The charity event had been a massive success. Raising over $2 million for underprivileged schools across the city, I still can't believe we pulled it off, Emma said, accepting a glass of wine from Jonathan. She had traded her usual cardigan for an elegant black dress that Jennifer Dama helped her pick out for the evening. We make a good team, Jonathan replied, standing beside her at the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lights reflected in his eyes as he looked at her instead of the view. Over the past few weeks, their working relationship had slowly transformed into something deeper. Late nights at the office had turned into dinners at quiet restaurants. Business conversations had become personal confessions. Emma had told him about growing up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs, about feeling invisible in her small hometown. About the dreams she had carried with her to Seattle, Jonathan had opened up too, sharing stories about the pressure of sudden wealth, the loneliness that came with success, and how meeting her had changed his perspective on everything. Emma, Jonathan said softly, setting down his wine glass and turning to face her completely. There's something I need to say. Her heart began racing. She had been hoping and dreading this moment for weeks. I know this complicates everything, he continued. I know it could make things difficult at work, and I know we come from completely different worlds. But I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just professional. Respect. Emma set down her own glass with trembling hands. Jonathan, I'm falling in love with you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I think I started falling that first day in the coffee shop, and every day since then has only made it stronger. Emma felt tears spring to her eyes. She had dreamed of hearing those words, but now that they were real, it terrified her. I feel the same way, she whispered back. But you're right, it does complicate everything. Jonathan stepped closer. Close enough that she could smell his cologne and feel the warmth radiating from his body. Then let's uncomplicate it, he said. Let's stop overthinking and just see where this takes us. When he leaned down to kiss her, Emma felt like the whole world shifted around them. His lips were soft and warm, and the kiss was gentle but full of all the feelings they had been holding back for months. Are you sure about this? Emma asked when they broke apart, her forehead resting against his. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Jonathan replied, stroking her cheek with his thumb. For 2 blissful weeks, they kept their relationship private, stealing moments together between meetings and finding excuses to work late so they could have dinner together. Emma felt like she was living in a fairy tale, but she knew it couldn't last forever. The end of their secret came on a Tuesday morning when Emma arrived at work to find a crowd of reporters gathered outside the Pierce Technologies building. Camera flashes went off as she tried to make her way through the chaos. "Miss Rodriguez, is it true you're dating Jonathan Pierce?" A reporter shouted. "How long have you been together?" Called another dot, Emma pushed through the crowd without comment, her heart pounding with panic. By the time she reached her desk, the story was already spreading across social media and entertainment websites. Billionaire CEO, Jonathan Pierce dating former small-town nobody. From secretary to sugar baby, the Cinderella story that has everyone talking gold digger or true love. Pierce Industries stock drops amid romance scandal. Emma stared at her computer screen in horror as she read article after article dissecting her relationship with Jonathan. The comments were even worse, filled with cruel assumptions about her motives and character. "Emma. In my office, please," Jennifer called, her expression sympathetic but serious, as Emma walked across the office. She could feel everyone staring at her. Conversations stopped as she passed. She heard whispers following in her wake. "The board is concerned about the media attention," Jennifer said gently once they were behind closed doors. "They're worried it could affect the company's reputation and stock price." "I understand," Emma said quietly, though her heart was breaking. "What do they want me to do?" "They want you to consider taking a leave of absence until the media attention dies down," Jennifer replied. "I'm sorry, Emma. I know this isn't fair." Emma nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She had known this moment would come eventually, but she hadn't expected it to hurt so much. Jonathan was in back-to-back meetings all morning, so Emma didn't have a chance to talk to him until late in the day. When she finally knocked on his office door, he looked up with relief and exhaustion in his eyes. "Emma, thank God," he said, standing immediately. "I've been trying to get free all day to talk to you about this mess." "The board wants me to take a leave of absence," Emma said without preamble. Jonathan's face darkened. "Like hell they do. I'm the CEO of this company and I'll make the personnel decisions." "Jonathan, please," Emma said, sitting down heavily in the chair across from his desk. "Look at what's happening. The stock price is dropping, the media is calling me a gold digger, and everyone in the office is treating me like I'm some kind of scandal. I don't care what they're saying," Jonathan said fiercely. "I love you, and I'm not going to hide it or apologize for it." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "But I care. I care that people think I'm only with you for your money. I care that your company is suffering because of me. I care that every time someone looks at me, they see someone who doesn't belong in your world." Jonathan came around his desk and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "You belong wherever you choose to be," he said firmly. "And you belong with me, if that's what you want." "Of course that's what I want," Emma sobbed. "But wanting something and being able to have it are two different things." "No, they're not," Jonathan said, standing up with sudden determination in his eyes. "Not if you're willing to fight for it." The next morning, Emma woke up to her phone buzzing incessantly. When she checked the news, she gasped in shock. Jonathan had called a press conference. She turned on the television to see him standing behind a podium, looking confident and determined in his navy suit. "I called this press conference to address the recent media speculation about my personal life," Jonathan was saying to the crowd of reporters. "Emma Rodriguez is not just my girlfriend. She's the most intelligent, compassionate, and talented woman I've ever met. She's also the best employee this company has ever had." Emma's heart swelled as she listened to him defend her publicly. Emma came to this company with nothing but talent and determination, Jonathan continued. "In less than 4 months, she's revolutionized our charitable initiatives and helped us create programs that have already changed hundreds of children's lives. If you want to question someone's motives, question mine. I'm the one who's lucky enough to have won the heart of someone. It's far better than I deserve." The reporters shouted questions, but Jonathan held up his hand for silence. "I have one more thing to say," he announced. "Emma Rodriguez, I know you're watching this, and I know you're scared. But I need you to know that I'd rather have one day of real love with you than a lifetime of playing it safe. So I'm asking you, in front of all these people and the whole world, will you marry me?" Emma nearly dropped her phone as Jonathan pulled out a ring box and held it up to the cameras. "Emma, you taught me that the best things in life aren't the things you can buy or achieve," he said, looking directly into the camera. "They're the things you're brave enough to fight for. Will you fight for this with me?" Emma was already grabbing her keys and running for the door before Jonathan finished speaking. She had never driven so fast in her life, her heart racing as she navigated through Seattle traffic to get to the Pierce Technologies building. The crowd of reporters was even bigger now, but Emma didn't care. She pushed through them with single-minded determination. Ignoring their shouted questions and camera flashes, she found Jonathan in the lobby, pacing nervously as he waited for her response. When he saw her, his face lit up with hope and love. "Yes," Emma called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Yes, Jonathan Pierce, I'll marry you." Jonathan swept her up in his arms, spinning her around as the crowd of reporters and employees who had gathered erupted in cheers and applause. When he set her down, he slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. "Are you sure you're ready for this craziness?" he asked, gesturing to the chaos around them. "I'm ready for anything as long as we're facing it together," Emma replied, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. As the cameras flashed around them and the crowd cheered, Emma realized that her small-town dreams had been too small. She had come to Seattle looking for a career, but she had found something infinitely more valuable. She had found love, purpose, and a partner who believed in fighting for the things that mattered most. 6 months later, Emma walked down the aisle in a simple but elegant wedding dress, carrying a bouquet of wildflowers from her hometown in Texas. The ceremony was small and intimate, attended only by their closest friends and family. But the love filling the room was bigger than any grand gesture could have been. As Jonathan took her hands and promised to love her through whatever storms life might bring, Emma knew that every challenge they had faced had been worth it. They had proven that love really could conquer all, even the vast differences between a small-town girl with big dreams and a billionaire who had learned that the greatest fortune of all was finding someone who loved you for exactly who you were. Their story became one of hope for dreamers everywhere, proof that sometimes the most unexpected meetings can lead to the most extraordinary love stories. And in the end, that was the greatest success either of them had ever achieved.